And my message to Argentinians is vote for Milei. Vote for La Libertad Avanza.
Do you watch the video of Javier Milei like saying afuera?
Ministerio de Turismo y Deporte, afuera. Ministerio de Cultura, afuera.
You know,
Yes,
out. Yes, the ministers, he took out the Minister of Women, Diversity, and many other waste of money ministers.
The problem in Romania is they increased taxes 4 times in the past 3 years. One of the things Milei used to say as well is, I don't believe in gradualism. We need shock therapy. It's like Javier Milei says, Argentina has to be the freest country in the world. I would like Romania to be the freest country in the world.
And he also dropped the poverty from 57 to 33%.
But poverty, I think that's the most important indicator. And that's what shows us that a libertarian society will actually make people more equal, less poor, and actually remove all arguments in favor of socialism and in favor of centralization of power in the hands of a few politicians. You have to choose. You have to choose. You can either have open borders or a welfare state. And if you want to have both, you're going to have what's happening right now in Europe.
Hey everyone from Viena TV, thank you for watching this video. Today we are going to interview, I have the pleasure, the honor to interview to Claudiu Năsui. He's a former Minister of Economy of Romania. He's a current congressman, and he defined himself as a libertarian economist of the Austrian Economic School. And the most important thing, he's a big fan of Javier Milei and the chainsaw that he's applying here in Argentina. So it's a pleasure and an honor to have you here, Claudiu. First of all, I want to start this interview talking about, just look at the numbers, the data. Milei dropped the inflation from 25 to 2%, and he also dropped the poverty from 57 to 33%. So we can agree that this is a successful government of Javier Milei here in Argentina. So what's your perspective, your opinion of Javier Milei in Romania and across all the countries in Europe?
So first of all, thank you so much for inviting me. And it's actually a huge pleasure to speak to Argentinian podcasters or news media and everything, because I think that Argentina right now is a beacon for the entire humanity. It shows us what a system that is usually laughed at is usually derided. They say, oh, libertarians, they're never going to succeed. It's never going to work. And Argentina right now, and for the past year and a few months, has shown us how well these ideas actually work, how well the ideas of freedom actually work when applied. Because I think what we see throughout Europe and the United States is a lot of politicians speaking the talk, saying the right things, saying that free markets work, but then when they get into office, they don't follow up on that. And what I think is unique with Argentina is that politicians like Javier Milei, actually they talked the talk, they said the right words, but once they were in office, they actually did it. They actually implemented it. And what's fantastic is to see how fast the results have come by. So I'm honored to speak to you. I'm honored to be here.
Thank you.
Exactly like I used to see the initial interviews of Javier Milei. So when I heard of him, I remember he was saying that things are going to last at least 2 years. There's going to be at least 2 years of hardship until things start getting better. And it's exactly like you said, after 1 year, things are starting to get better. So I think even Javier Milei was a more pessimistic than how
of
things
his own view. Yeah. I brought just two numbers, the numbers of inflation, that he dropped the inflation from 25 to 2%, and the poverty, that is incredible. He destroyed the poverty in Argentina from 57 to 33%. So,
and I think that's
incredible.
that's why the left hates him. That's why socialists hate him, because usually their narrative would be that freedom would bring out more prosperity, but more inequality, that you would make a lot of people poorer. And all these dystopias like Charles Dickens, with the poor are really poor, or in the dystopias of the United States in the future with some very few people living ultra rich and a lot of people ultra poor, and they blaming this on capitalism, on freedom. And I think what Javier Milei is showing that no, that's not true. Freedom and capitalism is actually what lifts people out of poverty. And I think we've seen this in the world, in China, in India, in a lot of countries. But right now we see it so obviously, so fast in Argentina. The poverty, so I remember, because I have this discussion with a lot of socialist colleagues of mine in Romania, unfortunately. So, and they used to say, no, but poverty is huge in Argentina. I say, yeah, it's huge, it's big, but it's lower than it was before. So the question is not whether you have problems. You still have problems. The question is whether you're starting to solve those problems, or if those problems are getting worse and worse. Because if you have an illness, and I give them this example, if you have an illness and you take bad medicine, or if you're drunk and you drink more alcohol, you're going to get even worse. So of course you have problems, but if you stop drinking, if you stop taking the drugs, then you're still going to be bad. It's still going to be, you're not going to be healthy, but it's going to get better. And the more you change your lifestyle to a good health, to a healthy living style, then the better you're gonna be. And it's exactly the same thing with the economy as well. So I'm really glad that you guys lifted the cepo, right? The
CVU. We destroyed the cepo. Yes, thanks for me.
I think that's when I talk about that with Romanian colleagues, they don't even imagine how is that even possible? Why would you do that? Then I explained to them how you got there. And so I think this is actually the most important metric is not inflation, is not growth. I'm not a big fan of GDP as a calculation. There are a lot of criticisms, legitimate criticisms of how you can compute growth and GDP.
Yes.
But poverty, I think that's the most important indicator. And that's what shows us that a libertarian society will actually make people more equal, less poor, and actually remove all arguments in favor of socialism and in favor of centralization of power in the hands of a few politicians. And that's why my eyes are usually on poverty. So each time when we have statistics on poverty, I look at them. Initially, from what I remember, after 6 months, because your statistics institute calculates them every 6 months.
It
got a bit higher, and then it plummeted. And now the downward trend is clear. And I hope it's
because of the chainsaw and all the liberals reforms or libertarians reforms that Milei is applying here. So in that sense, I'm gonna ask you what reforms Romanians need as we apply here in Argentina.
So actually, Romania has a better starting position than Argentina did, and I think that's a double-edged sword. We're in the European Union. So we're never going to really go bankrupt because they're always going to be there to help us. Argentina, on the other hand, it hit rock bottom. And when you hit rock bottom, then you wake up. So I think that's a double-edged sword. It's good in the short run because we're not gonna have bankruptcy. But on the long run, we need to wake up. And usually you wake up
very lately. Yes.
Yeah, when you bang yourself in the head, that's when you wake up. So that's why I say it's a double-edged sword. What Argentina used to be doing that Romania is not doing is really printing money and pumping money into the economy. Our government doesn't do it that way. It does it through debt and through the deficit.
Okay.
And one thing that I think we can do in Romania and we should do in Romania is eliminate the deficit, which is huge in Romania. It's huge. It's the biggest in the European Union.
You said that this is the double of Argentina that we used to have.
Yeah, it's 9%. You used to have 5.4. So 9% is huge. And still, I think that the way to go would be to do what Javier Milei did and apply the chainsaw and cut spending to make a surplus. And if you do that, what's going to happen in Romania is exactly what happened in Argentina. People are going to be pissed off. Those people who used to get the money are going to get pissed off. The special interest groups, those who have subsidies, those who have all these special privileges, which exist in Romania as well. Peronism didn't invent them. It's human nature. They're going to try to seek out as many privileges and advantages they can from the state. These people are going to get pissed off, but very fast what you're going to see is an economy that rebounds. So it's going to be an elimination of inflation, and people who get wealthier at the bottom, so an alleviation of poverty. And that's why I think, so one of the things Milei used to say as well is, I don't believe in gradualism. We need shock therapy. Yeah, and that sounds bad, right? Yes. Because, oh my God, he's going to shock us. It's something brutal, but it's what needs to be done.
But he now has a lot of popularity because of doing the shock reforms. This year is have the middle elections. We choose the congressman, congresswoman, but in order to that, you said about as a Romanian, you have an advantage as being part of the European Union. I want to ask you if you consider that Romania has to be remaining being part of the European Union, or it's a better option to be, a part of.
There are major geographical differences between Argentina and Romania. One of them is that Romania is next to Russia. So we're one border away to being borderline with Russia, which is a very aggressive and expansionist neighbor. And when you have such a neighbor, you really want to get in all the unions that exist on the planet just to be safer.
It doesn't matter if it's lefty or woke. Doesn't matter.
That's the second issue. So okay. I would say, okay, the European Union can have a lot of criticism, and we can criticize it a lot from a policy perspective, but it's light years away better than what Romanian politicians used to advocate. So, for instance, I see the tariff war that Trump almost started, because now he's dialing back.
Oh yeah, it was a threat. Yes.
I can only imagine what tariffs we would have had in Romania if the power to set tariffs would still be at Bucharest and in the capital, at Romanian politicians, because they would have used it. So I think the European Union for Romania is a huge step forward, because it obliged us to have some free market reforms and to have some sort of minimal level of economic freedom, which is granted for European countries, but it wasn't necessarily granted for Romania and Romanian politicians. Okay. So I think for Romania, the European Union is a huge step up. And also the larger, the population of Romania is around 19 million people. The European Union is vastly bigger. It's like 500 million people, 450 or something like that. So when you have a marketplace, a huge market, you can have more specialization, you have more division of labor, and you have more productivity. And I think that the ideal scenario is that in which Romania manages to become the freest society, the freest country in the European Union. In the European Union, yeah. So it's like Javier Milei says, Argentina has to be the freest country in the world. I would like Romania to be the freest country in the world, but given the circumstances, I think we can strive to be the freest country in the EU. And I think a misperception would be that the EU meddles more in internal affairs than other federations, like the United States government, the federal government.
Yes.
But that's actually not really the case. The US government has much more power than the European Union does. And then we get into discussion of whether the European Union is a federal state, because the United States is a federal state. But let's say that if you look at the economic blocks, EU, US, China, the EU would be comparable. And so you have to look at the governance of the EU, and the governance of the EU is made by these European institutions. So yeah, I would say twofold. I would say that without the EU, Romanian politicians would be much more socialist. And second, I would say that the European Union is a huge step up for us in terms of freedoms and of being obligated to have certain amount of economic freedoms.
Perfect. And Javier Milei and his government, they launched a reform to reduce the rights to the foreigners that came to Argentina in an illegal way. So in order to that, I'm gonna ask you, what do you think about the illegal movement that you are having in Europe, and what measures do you consider that Romania has to apply?
So I would say it's not that much of a problem in Romania, because it's not a very attractive country for foreigners, because it doesn't have all the economic prosperity and the welfare benefits that other EU countries have. Personally, as a libertarian, I'm not necessarily against immigration. So I think immigration has a lot to offer, potentially workforce.
Yes, of course.
However, I think there's a trifecta that can't work. So you can't have free immigration, so let's say open borders, simultaneously with a welfare state and with equal rights, because one of these three has got to give. So if you want to have a welfare state and equal rights, so if you're hired somewhere and you get a salary, you pay some welfare benefits, and then you get to have healthcare, you get to have pensions, you get to have some sort of money services. If you get fired, if you're unemployed, so you get some access to welfare. The problem is that if somebody else comes and they come in the millions, and they didn't pay initially, but they want to benefit from that, it's gonna completely crumble your welfare system, and is not gonna add to your workforce either. So I think that the problem, our big problem with immigration, I'm not sure what the situation is in Argentina. I didn't follow that part of the Argentine politics. But I think the problem is the compatibilization with welfare. It's very hard to have a welfare state and open borders at the same time. And that's, I think, Europe's problem.
Yes,
because you have to choose. You have to choose. You can either have open borders or a welfare state. And if you want to have both, you're going to have what's happening right now in Europe, which is a more and more pressure on the welfare state. Some political parties, which are, that's one thing that maybe I would like to talk about. There are a lot of they call them extreme politicians, extreme right politicians in Europe who claim to be like Javier Milei, but they're nothing like Javier Milei. They're extremely socialistic. They're extremely for state intervention. For instance, Marine Le Pen. You know Marine Le Pen.
Marine Le Pen, yes. We're also talking about, people that say we are the same as Javier Milei. What do you think about Simon, this candidate of Romania? And he's a nationalist, a populist.
These elections are this Sunday, exactly. So I would say in this way, I would be happy for any politician, Romanian, French, Argentinian, who says I was wrong. I think libertarianism is the way to go. I see what's happening in Argentina, and it works. I want this to happen to my country, and I will be the biggest ally of any politician that says that. Because then we would go through for a common goal, which is to further freedom in the world. The problem with Simeon is I think he's not that guy. I think what I've done in Romania is I've talked a lot about Argentina. And I've talked a lot about Argentina ever since Milei got voted in, because I said to myself, people are going to see the example, and the power of the example is going to be very strong. And I hope I convinced some people because of the results. I think I'm going to convince even more because I think the results are still going to keep going in.
And when you talk about with the Romanians, what they think or what they say about Milei when you talk about Milei and his government?
So it depends on the Romanians, but most of them.
Depends.
So let's say the first kind, they don't understand why I'm speaking about Argentina.
Yeah.
They say it's not a European country. It's far away. It's not even on the same continent. And I say, but it doesn't matter. What matters is the system. And Argentina right now is the only country in the world who is doing the right thing. The only one. Other countries, let's say they're trying to, like the United States with Dodge, they tried to do something, but they didn't. I'm sorry. I mean, I supported the Dodge. I wanted Musk to succeed, but they didn't. And there are a lot of reasons why. We can go into it, but it's not relevant right now. The only country that actually cut spending by 5 percentage points of GDP and transformed a huge deficit into a surplus is Argentina. I give them this as an example of how things can work. Some of them say, yeah, but Argentina is different. It's always this
the same wrong.
But these are Argentinians. We're Romanians. And so what?
Yeah,
Socialism failed in Romania, it's failed in Argentina, it's failed everywhere. And libertarianism, which I usually use the word liberalism because I think in the European sense, they didn't lose the term. So I think the classical liberal is the initial way in which we talked about it. And then I think the popularity, my popularity in Romania is such that people listened to me, they started looking into Argentina, they started seeing that it works. And what this Simeon fella did is I think he saw this as well. He saw that Javier Milei is insanely popular in the world as well, with some extreme right figures from Europe. And he said to himself, okay, I'll say something like Javier Milei said. And when he said it, I said, okay, that's great. But the guy whom he wants to place as prime minister of Romania is literally a communist. And I'm not saying communist as in, that guy's a communist and I'm just dissing him. He's an actual nostalgic of Ceausescu. So he speaks about our economy during Ceausescu and he praises it. He wants nationalizations. He wants price controls. He wants huge state interventions. So he wants foreigners not to be able to own more than 50% of a Romanian company. So all of these things which are actually the theses and the policies of the left he supports. So you can't be compatible if you say, I like Javier Milei, but I want to place a communist as prime minister. That's just lying to people.
It doesn't make sense, yes.
It doesn't make sense. So if I see any politician, whether it's Simeon, whether it's anybody else, who starts being, or who wants to be genuinely libertarian, or even he supports some libertarian ideas, I'm going to support those. And I'm going to say, okay, that's the right way to go. But I don't trust this person, because
you don't trust him, and you're not going to work with him if he offered you, I don't know, a position or something.
I would say I will always support the right policies, but he's not going to win. He's not going to win. If I see a libertarian, I'm going to support him full-heartedly. If I see libertarian ideas, I'm going to support those. But when I see a person who says everything, contradictory statements and all, I can't support that.
So do you watch the video of Javier Milei, like saying afuera, out? Yes, the ministers, he took out the Minister of Women, Diversity, and many other waste of money ministers. Do you consider that Romania has to do the same thing in, I don't know, many areas that you have in the government that are a waste of money?
Of course, and I would say I've for the past 2 years I've made a parallel budget of Romania. So because I've been in charge of the Ministry of the Economy for 8 months, I had a privileged position to see how the Romanian government actually is inside. And even though it looks very bad on the outside, on the inside it's worse.
Wow.
So what I've done is every year I make a parallel budget. I didn't call it afuera, because I used to do it before I saw the video with afuera, but in which I cut spending and I show everybody, look, for this ministry, this we can cut. We don't need that. We don't need these expenses. And it's right now it's an interesting exercise to make, because after these elections, Romania is going to have some tough decisions to make. We have a part of politicians who want to increase taxes and lower the deficit through increased taxes, which is only going to bring the state higher, make the state bigger and higher in Romania, and make socialism more socialism, let's say, and make socialism thrive. Whereas I advocate huge cuts in spending. If you look at Romania's problem, our problem is not that spending decreased. So we have a 9% of GDP deficit, not because politicians lowered taxes and didn't cut spending, because then you could make the argument, okay, so if you don't cut spending, but you cut taxes, you're going to get a deficit, you're going to get inflation, at least increase taxes. You could make that argument. Mm-hmm. But the problem in Romania is they increased taxes 4 times in the past 3 years. 4 times is huge. And if you look at the revenues of the government revenues, they increased. The problem is that expenses exploded. So what I'm saying,
and nobody wants to invest in Romania because of those increases of,
because they see a situation which is unsustainable, and in which the only thing you can predict is that there are going to be increases of taxes and unpredictability and surprises, bad surprises for investors. So everybody right now is holding back. They're saying, okay, get your stuff together, and afterwards we're going to see if we invest or not.
And Claudiu, to conclude, what message would you like to give to Milei and to the Argentinians? I know that you are going to come to Argentina, and I hope that you are going to have a meeting with our president Javier Milei, because you're doing an incredible job in Romania.
That would be an honor. So my message to Javier Milei would be just to keep doing what he's doing. It's wonderful. And even if he were to stop tomorrow, even if tomorrow he would say, I quit, I resign, I leave, the good that he did to humanity is so much. And I'm not saying Argentina, I'm saying humanity, because Argentina is a beacon. Argentina is an example right now for people like me, politicians, libertarians, to give as an example to show how things are working. So the good that he did is huge. But if I could ask him for one thing, it would be that after his second mandate as president, to not leave, to not stop. He should be doing what Argentina, I think, is uniquely placed to do, is to be a leader of libertarian movements all around the world, and to have this sort of international movement, which can be based in Argentina, because that's the place where it succeeded. Politically, libertarians didn't succeed anywhere else. I'm sorry. I would have liked it to be Romania, but it's not. Hopefully, it's going to be Romania one day as well, but Argentina was the first. So my message to Milei would be keep up what he's doing, and don't abandon the fight for freedom afterwards, even though I realize this is a personal choice and a cost to yourself, because it's his life that he's investing. And my message to Argentinians is vote for Milei. Vote for La Libertad Avanza. Vote for libertarian candidates and libertarian politicians, because it's not just Argentina's fate which is decided. Argentina is going to be directly decided, but indirectly, the whole world is watching Argentina. And they're watching Argentina. The socialists hope it will fail. Libertarians know it won't fail, but the whole world is watching. So vote for politicians supported by Javier Milei, by La Libertad Avanza. I'm not saying they're perfect. I'm sure there will be people who have problems, who, I don't know, they said something wrong, they did something wrong. Human nature is not perfect, but believe me, it's much better than any alternative, and the world is watching. So keep up the good work, and please continue on voting libertarians.
Thank you for all the great job that you are doing in Romania. And I know that you're a MAGA guy and make Argentina great again. And you're also
make Argentina great again.
Make Romania great again also. So thank you very much. And thank you guys for watching this interview.